African Americans and the Mexican Revolution from 1910 to 1920. And it's written by Gerald Horn. Um, this subject matter to me is quite interesting to me. Um, and I found the book a great read. I would say out of 5 stars, I would give it a 4. Um, it just gives a great detail on the history going back, let's say, from 1840 to 1950. It goes into discussion on a lot of fronts that right now we are grasping with. And while I was reading the book, my thoughts came to um, our, our differences at this particular point. Um, it was a slow read. I wanted to take my time with the particular book. There are some really interesting passages within the book, which I'll read some of them. But the interest really lies in the complexities of so many groups here in this particular book. And I'll describe a little bit of it uh, um, as I speak. Um, I think the big point here, the overall big point here is, and there's a passage in the book, it says, general crises of white supremacy. Um, we have that right now. Um, and how do put that together when you're looking at this period? This period where the borderlands is where all the action is happening. You have Mexico, they're in their own midst of revolution, and then you have the United States trying to protect citizens that live along the border. So it's an interesting aspect in the book. Um, there's another line here that states, in Texas, where the Old South merged seamlessly with the Wild West, brutal confrontations occurred between master and slave Africans. Now, what you see here is a state that's very um, um, prejudiced against African Americans, and not only African Americans, but we have Mexicans. We have any ethnic group that resides in Texas at this point um, is looking over their back to see if somebody might be coming for them, wanting to burn their building or their homes or kill them. So it's a tough state. It's not a state for the weak. Um, if you're not white, um, there are some issues, and you have to protect yourself at all times. Um, there's another line that I like to state that says, the former slave Walter Rim felt similarly. All we had to do was walk, but walk south and we'll be free as soon as we cross the Rio Grande. In Mexico, you could be free. Now, Mexico had no slavery. They didn't believe in slavery. At certain points, it wanted to abolish it through their Congress. So for African Americans, it was a place where the Jim Crow laws would not affect them. Um, and they can live peacefully among the Mexican people. And at times, it, people lived together, and certain people would defend them, but most of the time, it was a lot of hostility towards African Americans um, getting to Mexico. Um, Again, the ride, I mean, not the ride, but the walk was a very long one, depending on where you came from. Georgia, uh, Florida. So it was a long trek to get to Mexico and live a life of dignity. Now, African Americans um, held Mexicans in high esteem. They felt that they were their brothers. Mexicans would help as much as possible the African American community that came from the United States. Um, they felt that they were just as equal as themselves, and they felt for them because of all the um, prejudices that they would have to endure. The Tianos, again, is another Mexican group, aided runaway slaves in homes and in churches. They aided them by allowing them to stay in homes and churches, anything to try to protect them as much as possible. Um, we also have at this point, again, African Americans looking for work. One of the places where they would get a little bit, they would get some wage, was the United States Cavalry in the Army. They were part of the Buffalo Soldiers, and for Mexicans, um, or anybody, or Mexicans or Native Americans, anybody living within the borderlands would meet up with the Buffalo Soldiers, and the Buffalo Soldiers were used to clean house, to get rid, to dispossess of groups that were in this borderland. You have to see that the borderlands was really, really uh, upfront with um, with the president of the United States, the leaders of Mexico. It was just always in the news, and there was always people wanting the government to come in with troops to try to protect them from assaults. Now, not only did you have assaults with, let's say, Pancho Villa, but you also had assaults from Native Americans. Um, you have the Apaches. You have Geronimo. Took them 16 months to try to find him. You have Pancho Villa. There was just, that area was just full of a lot of um, gunfighting, killing. So that was always on the mind of of people um, in power, in positions of authority in the United States, to see how things could be crushed in terms of violence. Um, there was many Buffalo Soldiers that would state that um, shouts of Africa were met with shouts of Mexico. Mexico at that point was the dream for many. Um, did they stay? Many did not. In certain years of the early 20th century, numbers rose, but then numbers came down, um, left for the North. The North was another area where, um, you know, um, a big concentration of African Americans would come. Um, Now, with Jack Johnson, I like to talk a little bit about Jack Johnson because Jack Johnson, um, great fighter, beat everybody uh, till they just couldn't take it no more. But again, we go back to the white supremacy, and you could see how the community, the white community, did not like this particular man winning every bout. And promoters would try to find the biggest person, the toughest to fight Jack Johnson, but Jack Johnson would always win. And Jack Johnson wasn't a person that, rolled over to any comments stated to him about, his color. And he would defend himself. And he became very close to the president of Mexico. So there's a lot of that story with him in the book. And I think it's really, really interesting how this man, all by himself, was able to have some peace in another country until, um, his fortunes changed and he was arrested. Um, Now, another area, and I think this is the biggest part that really struck me, and there's a line in the book that says, minority among minorities in the borderlands. Now, in the book, we have Native Americans and all different types of Native Americans. We have Comanches, we have Apaches, you have other Indian tribes, just trying to keep themselves from that being eliminated from the earth. Um, and then you have Mexicans, right? And then you have you have Mexican Americans. And then you have also Chinese that are part of this equation. And so you have all these particular people living within the confines of the borderlands. And to talk about a simulation, here is right. It's something that hasn't been seen, and there are many people who are upset about it. And Gerald Horne, the author, talks about that. So again, going back to this whole story, what I love about the story is that it gives us a real understanding of all the players that in today's times, seems like, wow, it seems like it's still persuasive in terms of how we function as groups, as ethnic groups, and we're still battling some of these um, feelings, or what's another word, thinking towards one another. But it was good. The book was excellent because it gave me a different perspective. It brought me back to a time where I felt, well, I just didn't understand. And I think the book, what it really did was bring that out. It brought out that the problems that we have today were here 100 years ago, and it's not easy to try to, move on. And I think there's been periods that we have, um, but there's still a lot of deep feelings about the invasion of Mexico, us taking their territory, California, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico. There's a lot of things that still brew, and then you have the communities that are affected by um, these let's say events that happen. So I would like, if you can, I if you're into race relations, this is the book that I would suggest reading. It's a good read. I would read it slowly because there's a lot of terms here that takes a little bit of time to figure out. But again, I think it's an excellent book. Um, so thank you so much for tuning in. This is Jose Romero, Adult Services / Outreach Librarian from West Orange Public Library. Thank you so much and have a great day.